Hi everybody, this short video is about calibrating vernier calipers and the advantages and disadvantages of the two sets that we've got here. Results may differ when using vernier calipers because they haven't been calibrated, so we're getting inconsistencies of measurements, or if they've not been set to zero, something like that, or the user, the reader, actually doesn't read these consistently, and there's more chance for error really with the reading of the more traditional mechanical type than there is the digital type. It's very important to make sure that measurements are actually taken accurately. For example, if you're manufacturing a number of parts that need to be identical, the calibration and the accurate measurement is really important. So if we want to calibrate these, the first thing we do is look visually to check there's no marks or chips or busted up edges on these anvil faces and these jaws. If there's any muck or dust or anything that's been picked up from the workshop, a soft cotton cloth just to wipe them over, and a little bit of lube on this slide is always a good thing. A little bit of spray or something like that, just to keep it running freely. Make sure the set closes to zero so you can get a nice good zero reading on that scale, and take a measurement of an item, and then whatever that measurement is, record it, close the calipers, open them again, and then measure again. And providing you could do that 2 or 3 times and you're getting a consistency of measurement, you know that the caliper and the caliper sets to the 0, you know that you're going to get a relatively good reading. As far as industry goes, what they do in industry to set them is they use a feeler gauge or a slip gauge, something like that. And what that is, that's a metal block that's ground or honed to a very fine tolerance. And you would repeat the process, but with, say, a 1mm feeler gauge. Do your visual checks, clean the faces of these jaws and anvils off. Put the feeler gauge, let's say it was 1mm in the jaws, close the jaws. Hopefully that'll read to a millimetre, and then repeat that 2 or 3 times. And providing it does, you know that you can then go ahead and use them. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of the two? Well, the digital calipers are far easier to read. Not just that, they've got greater accuracy in that they can go measure to 0.01 of a mil, as opposed to the mechanical ones that are 0.02 of a mil. So they're that bit more accurate, easier to read. So we can go to a lot finer tolerances. There's less chance of mechanical failure because there's not as many mechanical parts. They're a lot easier to zero, so you can just zero and set the button just by pressing that to get them at 0. You can just press the button and convert imperial to metric, even in some cases to fractions. They're a lot more shock proof, surprisingly enough, than the mechanical type. The battery life on these is pretty good, but again, it's a battery, so it could run out. What don't these like? Well, they don't like hot or particularly cold conditions. Again, a battery is required, and they don't like moisture and water. Now, no measuring tool likes moisture or water or particularly hot or cold conditions, but the mechanical type are a lot more harder. You can just wipe them off with a soft cotton cloth, and any moisture or dampness in time should be fine to use. That more or less completes the videos on vernier calipers. Thanks very much.